Welcome to Hashtag Finance. I'm your host, Barrington Miller, and today I'm here with Jason Ackerman, head of TerrAscend and a valued CSE listed issuer. Jason, welcome to the show, Hashtag Finance.
Great to be here, Barrington. Good morning.
Let's start off. How are you doing? How's the family? How's everybody where you are?
Yeah, it's great. I live in Manhattan, so it's a bit of an unusual place. So we moved up to our house in Woodstock, New York, so we're out of the city. And, kids are homeschooling. I've got a child who's ready to go to college, so that's probably the most unsettling. But overall, we're pretty good.
Well, that's good. How's everybody in your community? Because I know New York has been just basically a hotbed of...
Hotbed, yeah. Actually, both my two children had COVID early on, right at the beginning.
Right.
Got through it in a few days, no problem. And I think people don't realize just how early on the COVID was actually in our city. New York is such a hotbed for foreign people coming through, and so I think it's been around and it's a place. But when you walk around New York City now, it's literally a ghost town. Everyone I know has left the city, or if you're there, you're kind of not really moving around much. So it's a strange place to be. And urban environments are going to have the toughest getting back. We ride the subways, everything's close, the way we live our lives. So it's a different place.
Well, we're going through the same thing. I'm in Toronto, or just outside of Toronto. I was working in Toronto, and it's the same. Social distancing, quarantine, self-isolation. The funny thing is, we're actually more connected now. I talk to our West Coast team pretty much every day, and we're all going through the same thing. So this thing it definitely doesn't discriminate.
No, it does not.
So I have a confession to make. I have a very, very soft spot when it comes to TerrAscend. TerrAscend it's 2 blocks away from my house.
You're in Mississauga?
Yeah. It's that close. I actually, the first time I did a tour visit or a site visit, I biked there, and it took me 7 minutes, something like that.
I assume you didn't do that in the wintertime? It was
no. And I love the facility. It was immaculate, and everyone's really nice. What's your association with the company? How did you get started? And what's a bit about your background?
So I spent 10 years as an M&A investment banker, and then the last 20 years, I wrote a business plan and built a company called Fresh Direct, which is an online fresh grocer, which went from farm to people's homes. We built up a $700 million business, 4,000 employees over the 20 years, all kind of organic growth, very complex business, largely in the New York City metro area down to Washington, D.C., New York. And it was 100% digital, where we built out the entire supply chain, manufacturing. We manufactured 1,000 products in our facilities and distributed around 15,000 products, and had hundreds of trucks delivering daily to customers. A very fast-paced business. So that's a bit of my background, and it's a funny story how I came into cannabis. Convincing people to buy fish on the internet can be a bit of a stretch.
And I said to myself, that's a first. I have not heard that one yet.
We were all fresh, fruits, vegetables, meats, cheeses, fish, it was a very fresh oriented, like a Whole Foods, if you would.
Right.
And I always said, gosh, if I could just deliver cannabis, wouldn't that be a lot easier? Everyone gets it delivered in New York. It's a much easier product to manage. It's not hard to convince someone to buy it online relative to the food business. And so I retired from Fresh Direct about a year and a half ago, and I was keen to, as New York was looking at legalizing, I started spending a lot of time looking at the space, and I'd made a lot of investments in the space as well. So I had an interest in the view of digitizing the industry. And that's how I came along Jason Wild through connections and some other businesses. Spent some time, became the executive chairman to oversee the operations because I love digging my hands into businesses, and quickly came to the conclusion that there's some really great assets here and that I could build my vision through this business as well. And then recently decided to and accepted the full-time CEO role as of 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
yeah, now I'm running it and having a blast.
Oh, well, that's really good. And like I told you, I guess before we started really rolling, um, I knew some of the previous administration and very very good base, very very good foundation. But you're absolutely right. The business itself was solid, and we wish you nothing but but the best in taking it forward and enacting your vision. Now that transition, because TerrAscend, I guess for all intents and purposes, is a Canadian company, Canadian operation. Um, it's now getting more of a U.S. feel to it. Um, new CEO. How's that transition been going?
It's actually gone really well. I'm a type of guy who digs pretty deep in the business. So I'd spent, 5, 6 months really learning every aspect, all the talents, the assets, the opportunities. And yeah, if you look at our strategy, which was the direction, started out in Canada, but as you know, there's a very large population in the United States. Canada's roughly the size of California. So if we think broadly about the opportunity, the United States is also a very large. And so you look at the portfolio, we have Canada, California, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania for our THC business. Place like Pennsylvania, give you a sense, it's probably going to be $1 billion med market this year. It's going to go rec probably in a year or so. That's probably a $2 or $3 billion market eventually. New Jersey is going up for ballot initiative. It's already med. So, if you look at some of the markets in the US where the supply demand balance is great, there are some substantial markets that we have assets right now that are some really wonderful opportunities.
When we talk, we do a lot of talking at the CSE and seminars, and I keep telling people, as far as investment opportunities, look south. It is the U.S. Michigan, I think, has 300,000 medical patients.
Yeah,
that's Canada. Like you said, the population of California, that's Canada.
And there's like a whole bunch of those states just like that.
Yeah, and there's ones that are like that aren't even at the party yet. Wait till Texas comes along. That's just sitting there. That's like, it's just mind-boggling. Texas is like 4 or 5 different states in the one. So your outlook for 2020, when January started, or at the end of December, versus now, has there been any change? Has COVID? I know COVID's affected it, but
yeah, it was really interesting to go through, and I've been through many crises in my previous management life, and this was just another playbook coming around, which you go through the cycle, which is panic. You don't know what actually it means, and as you move through it, you start to ferret through the implication, and usually the implication is different in every place. So as we go through our asset base, Pennsylvania, for example, medical market, essential service, social distancing still can go in. People are smoking more in Pennsylvania now that they're home, so business is up. People can still access the store, so still really unaffected. However, you got to make sure that your employees feel safe, and you put all the practice in place to create safety in the employee side. But from a consumer perspective, demand is strong. California, on the other side, San Francisco is probably one of the most lockdown cities in the country, so can't walk into the store. So that's had a big impact. But what we've seen, as one would expect, digital is a significant now portion of our retail revenue, curbside pickup, home delivery. And I think that's actually a great outcome, is an acceleration, which is, I'm a huge fan of digital and the impact that's having on how we do business with our customers. So there's some definitely minuses, but some definite pluses for the future.
TerrAscend and some of the products and some of the brands that you have. Let's talk about the brands. Let's talk about brand play. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite? Just
it's an interesting. I do. We have kind of 3 brand portfolios. We have our Canadian market portfolio under the Haven Street brand, where we have both cannabis as well as manufactured products and vapes, teas, some great stuff. Pennsylvania, the med market, we've got an amazing medical team that we probably have of 55 to 60 products. The team there has amazing efficacy, great science, great innovation, huge sell-through. In fact, half of our business in that market is the manufactured products, not just flower. Those are products I have at home all the time. In California, it's a bit more flavorful, punchy, and colorful, and they've been out there for a while. And they're not a med market; they're just, as you can imagine, California. So we've got State Flower, which is a very high concentration, high-end brand. Be careful when you smoke that. You better be ready to sit on the couch. It's good stuff. And then we've got our Valhalla brands, which are great gummies. And again, more playful versus the medical side on the East Coast in Canada. So a good variety.
Legalization versus banking. What would be on Jason's wish list?
Banking.
It's
like the cost of capital in this industry. If you take the tax situations and the banking, it creates such a barrier to do business from what most people are used to. So, not being able to get traditional lending against real estate, so you pay a much higher cost of capital. We want to lease a facility to even open a dispensary. We pay a premium for the rent just because we're in cannabis. So the Banking Act, merchant fees, you pay, exorbitant merchant fees because of the processing. So I look at the Banking Act as the most important thing to pass so that the cost of capital and cost of operations get lowered and make us more and more competitive. Because remember, we're still competing with the illicit market. And it's very important that we keep on lowering prices and lowering the gap between, legal market pricing and medical with all the taxes and costs. So the closer we get that down, the more we're going to convert to the legal market. So I think banking is a really important part of, helping that out.
Just so you know, I've interviewed, I think you're the fourth CEO this week, and I've asked Cresco, Curaleaf, Trueleaf, and yourself, TerrAscend, and Neil Mall interviewed Body and Mind yesterday, and you guys and girls are batting 5 out of 5 when it comes, and it's resounding. It's not even close. It's not even close. And I wish and I hope that banking gets passed and gets through sooner rather than later.
Well, federal legalization is a plus and a minus. A lot of people like us have built assets inside of states, and federal legalization in the long term, depending on reciprocity happens, could eventually migrate growing and manufacturing across the country. Like I've been in the food business for 20 years. We bought our fruits and vegetables from California. The sun is shining all the time. It's not really happening in Vermont. So eventually federal legalization changes the nature of how assets are going to get redistributed. So honestly, federalization, we kind of would prefer states keep on doing what they're doing, Safe Banking Act, let us do it. But we got to protect our investments. So, federalization is a real catch-22, honestly.
That's a fantastic answer. I never thought of it like, hey, let's slow down on that one. No, that's great. During this time, how have your customers been? How's the customer base?
The customers have been great. When you make communications out to the customers and explain what we're doing, keep our employees safe, what we're doing around making sure that the store is a safe environment and really amping up communication. And what I find is that you can do a bunch of things, but if you don't communicate it, you don't get credit for it. So we've had great responses from our customers around, hey, you guys are doing a great job. I feel safe. We tend to take whatever the requirement is and make sure we're above it for everything we do, and we let our customer know our standard. It's actually a great opportunity for us to explain the ethos and the standard at which we run our business, and our customers have really valued that. And it's also helped us innovate. For example, in one of our dispensaries, we're opening the first drive-through pickup window in Pennsylvania, which before it wasn't allowed, but now with COVID, we pushed the legislation, and now we're opening up, and it's like a Starbucks. You order on your phone, you pull in, you get handed your stuff, and you keep on going. So great innovations happening, and they love it.
Wow, this is great.
Right?
How are you attracting new customers? Well,
in the med market, a lot of it is working with the doctor's offices and making sure that we're getting references and patients. So We often bring the doctor's office and walk them through, and when they understand the science behind and the efficacy we're putting behind the product, getting them comfortable that this is a safe place and the right place to send their patients. That's a lot of how we market and bring in patients into our dispensary operations, and that's what we do. And then out in California, it continues to be about brand recognition and innovating on digital and making sure customers can find us. Interesting, United States, you can't advertise really in this business. You can't go on Google, Facebook. There's no way to do that. So you got to get a little tricky on how to continue to acquire customers.
Well, even though you can't advertise, when our group went to Las Vegas, we saw a whole bunch of advertising when we got off the plane. Like, we just started sweating. We were so nervous going, how are they doing? How can you see massive billboards, taxi cabs plastered with it? In Ontario, very, very quiet. It's there, but it's not there. There's a lot of information. Well,
Las Vegas and Canada are probably very different places.
Ooh. I was definitely not in Mississauga anymore. Let's jump around a little bit and get to some of your relationships, especially the Canopy relationship. They're a massive name. How did that come about, and where is it at right now?
So Canopy was an early investor in TerrAscend. And so we've had a long-standing relationship with Canopy. And as we put forward our expansion plan, Canopy made a significant $60 million US investment in our business, largely into Canada, which, as you know, they can't invest in US THC. So we put it into the Canadian business and use it to reduce our debt. And they have a strong interest when federal legalization happened in the United States to participate in that marketplace. So they're making some select investments, and it's been a great partnership with them. They're a great operator. They've got a new team in place, and we have a strong dialogue about the future. And they have a strong interest long term in the United States. They've got a great portfolio of IP and brands, which we talk about. They've been a big supporter of ours, and we talk to them all the time. It's great to get their insights as well.
Oh, that's great. Canopy is definitely one of the gems and one of the most recognizable names in the industry, and will probably continue to do so. So good on you for maintaining that relationship and expanding on it. Let's go a little bit forward thinking now. What's on the horizon for TerrAscend?
Well, we have our build-out plan, which we're very committed to staying focused on that, which is largely, New Jersey. We have the application. We're in the middle of constructing facilities, so we've got up to a 250,000 square foot building that we're going to be putting up. We're building 80,000 square feet now, so we're excited to build out New Jersey, which is happening. In Pennsylvania, we just finished tripling our grow there, and that's now out in the marketplace. So that's a significant expansion for us. We're introducing new products in Canada, so we've got a great product development cycle that we're excited about there. And I think, what's actually really interesting, going back to my early banking days, as you probably know, the US at this point, there's a bit of a musical chairs where the music stopped. A lot of people were investing money, big plans to invest, and the capital markets shut down, right? And a lot of people are caught in a situation where they don't have the runway anymore. So we're finding that, at least what I'm excited about, we've got a great management team, and I think there's going to be some very interesting M&A transaction opportunities that are coming through, given some people in a short cash position, but probably with some good assets, with the ability to really think about how to expand our portfolio in this marketplace. So I think the next 12 months are going to be a very interesting place. I've seen probably 10 deals across my plate in the last 10 days alone of things, and it's been really heating up. So I think it's a good, interesting time. I think TerrAscend 24 months from now is going to be vastly different than it is today, because I think those opportunities will show themselves.
Just expanding on this, if you could ideally choose the type of expansion or the type of company to either acquire, merge with, work with, what would it be?
Really good ones. But what that looks right?
ones that aren't going to sink the
Ones
ship.
I like.
Ones I like and ones that are good.
But I think you have to, there's a couple of places that I start from. As you know, that every state, Canada, it's, while cannabis is a big opportunity, the legislation, the way the states have issued licensing and the balance of the licenses really dictates the margin structure in these sectors. So we like states that have done more limited licenses so that the supply and demand grow in retail are in balance. Because as you know, in Canada, for example, grow went like this, but retail has had a hard time getting. And so oversupply happened as a result of these not being in balance, takes down the price, reduces the margin. So you have to be really careful to look for places where that equilibrium in the structure and the build out feel in balance that allows for a good, healthy structure in the marketplace. So we like markets that have those characteristics because it enables us to operate more effectively. And last thing I'd say is, in my experience, I believe in going deep, not wide. It's not about planting flags around the country. It's making sure that where you compete, you have a real position of strength, you have economies of scale, and that you can continue to dominate that market through pricing over time and leverage and profitability. So that's kind of how we think about it. So those are our criteria as we look at things.
Well said, Jason, and thank you for your time. We're going to end this issue of #finance. On that note, I've been your host, Barrington Miller, with Jason Ackerman, head of TerrAscend. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.